Sri Tejasvi Surya ji.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I speak in support of this bill introduced by the Honorable Finance Minister. Today, this House is addressing an issue of eminent importance that will positively impact the lives of more than 20 crore depositors of urban cooperative banks, district central cooperative banks, and state cooperative banks, whose lives and life savings were under jeopardy because of a regulatory twilight zone. That cooperative banks are in a precarious state owing primarily to unprofessional management and non-compliance with modern banking practices is beyond dispute. When these banks crumble under their own weight, helpless depositors are left to fend for themselves without much effective legal redress. We have seen how in the recent past, thousands of depositors, primarily from modest middle-class backgrounds and lower middle-class backgrounds, have been defrauded. The PMC Bank case in Mumbai and the Sri Guru Raghavendra Cooperative Bank case in my own constituency of Bangalore is a case in point. This is a result of proper lack of regulatory oversight by cooperative banks by the RBI. For all these years, despite cooperative banks performing solely banking functions, they were not fully accountable to the RBI. However, strangely, the opposition does not seem to be keen on cleaning up the mess in this sector. And their opposition to these reforms stands on shaky and spacious grounds. The first opposition is on the ground that this parliament lacks legislative competence to enact this bill and that this is against a federal structure. The argument does not hold water for the following reasons. Madam, the third proviso to Article 243 ZL Clause 1 states that provisions of the Banking Regulation Act 1949 apply squarely to all cooperative banks. Speaking on this, the constitutional bench of the Supreme Court, in many judgments, the latest being the constitutional judgment in Panduranga Ganapati Chaugale versus Vishwas Rao Patil, as recently as May 2020, stated that the constitutional provision itself makes a distinction between a cooperative bank and other cooperative societies and applied the law enacted under entry 45 of list 1 of the 7th schedule to the cooperative banks. It thereby set at rest all controversy concerning the applicability of the BR Act 1949 to banks run by cooperative societies. It also made it clear that such banks are governed under entry 45 list 1 of the 7th schedule. Madam, the proposed bill only refers to such societies which are solely performing banking functions, and it is to be noted that incorporation powers are still with the state registrars, and therefore it requires the scheme envisioned by the Supreme Court. It is also pertinent to note that just like how banking companies are registered under the Companies Act but are governed under the BR Act, the cooperative societies performing solely banking functions will be incorporated under the respective states' Cooperative Societies Act, but will be governed in their banking functions and connected management functions by the BR Act. Therefore, this area of law is no more res integra, and I would want to urge the members of the opposition, many of whom are learned lawyers, to appreciate the Supreme Court's reasoning on this. Madam, the second ground of attack is that the proposed amendment debilitates the cooperative banks and dilutes their fundamental cooperative features. But we must first understand how cooperative banks are different from other cooperative societies which are not involved in banking. Cooperative banks are strictly not cooperative in nature, as they mobilize funds not only from among their members but also from the general public. This is not the case with other cooperative societies. This is the reason why cooperative banks are barred from performing non-banking functions. Also, cooperative banks are controlled by shareholders who are also members of the society. But depositors are not always members of the society. Therefore, a non-member depositor is not permitted to participate in the decision making or borrow his money, although it is his funds that are at stake. This places cooperative banks in a class different from that of other cooperative societies. This is the reason why all cooperative banks repeatedly has been held that must come under the supervision of the RBI. All these years, madam, the biggest problem before the cooperative banks and their administration was the problem of dual control. While urban cooperative banks came under state RCS and the RBI, district central cooperative banks came under the NABARD and the RCS. The Madhav Rao Committee of UCBs in 1999 had highlighted the problems of this dual control regime, and I would want to quote few lines from the report. It said, "Perhaps the most significant factor which adversely affects the performance of urban cooperative banks and prevents timely and adequate remedial action to prevent sickness is the dual control over the urban cooperative banking sector. The committee is convinced that unless the dual control is replaced by unitary control, it will not be possible for a healthy urban cooperative banking sector to subsist. This unitary control must recognize that whereas the cooperative character of UCBs may be controlled by the Registrar of Cooperative Societies, its banking functions must necessarily be under the control of the sole control of the RBI. This precisely is what these amendments propose to do. In that regard, madam, in 1999, the Madhav Rao Committee had made recommendations that the BR Act must be amended. Sadly, for all these years, these were not done. And to even do these, bring these monumental reforms, it took a Narendra Modi government in office. From the perspective of the depositor, madam, a bank is a repository of trust. The moment a financial institution uses the word bank, the depositor presumes that it is supervised and guided by the RBI and therefore his deposits are safe. He does not understand, nor does he know, that multiple legislations cover the field of banking and cooperative banks. This dual control regime therefore placed depositors of different banks on different pedestals, which created a peculiar practical as well as a constitutional problem. Nothing highlights this anomaly better than the recent redressal of the Yes Bank by the timely intervention of the central government, the finance minister, and the RBI, by facilitating speedy reconstruction of the Yes Bank, while depositors of both PMC Bank as well as the Guru Raghavendra Bank continue to be in distress because of the moratorium placed on the respective banks even to this day. This was because the law, that is the BR Act, permitted the RBI to restructure and reconstruct banking companies while not allowing for the same in respect of cooperative banks. This was a gross violation of the fundamental right to equality of depositors. I must thank the Finance Minister, Nirmala Sitharaman ji, for bringing this issue to a closure, because very recently she had met with the depositors of Guru Raghavendra Bank in Bangalore and had assured all of them that appropriate legislative measures would be taken immediately to address this big legal anomaly. Madam, it is also pertinent to note that the amendment to Section 45 of the BR Act will henceforth allow reconstruction of banks without the imposition of a moratorium, thereby avoiding disruptions and panic in the financial system. Madam, it was appalling, rather surprising, that few learned members from the opposition said that law and legislation must not apply to the cooperative banks and that they must be let alone, that there must be no law that must apply and regulate their functions. Madam, banking is a very sensitive issue, and this is a space which cannot be let to have any statutory vacuum. Even ancient civilizational India was aware of this necessity and had framed appropriate rules in the Dharma Shastras. I would want to quote only one sentence from the Manusmriti. In the Manusmriti, a few thousand years ago, the lawgivers then had envisaged, Yo nikshepam narpayati yascha anikshipya yachate tavubhav choravat shasyav dapyava tat samam damam. This means a borrower who does not repay his loan and a banker who does not repay a depositor, both are thieves and must be punished. Therefore, madam, even since long, the importance of regulation on banking matters was stressed. However, in respect of cooperative banks, because of non-implementation of RBI suggestions, resulted in a clique of persons controlling cooperative banks in different states, resulting in huge losses to depositors and therefore consequent loss of the common man in the banking system. Let me just give one small example, madam, before I conclude. The half of the deposits of the PMC Bank is alleged to have been borrowed by the chairman of the bank. In the case of the Guru Raghavendra Bank, only 27 borrowers have borrowed upwards of 927 crores and have contributed to more than 70% of the total NPAs. The reforms that are today proposed will put an end to the conflict of interest of the promoters and usher in modernity, professionalism, and progressive banking practices in the cooperative sector. Madam, the most other important aspect of reform that is being proposed is the auditing of the cooperative banks. Cooperative banks have often been found to cook books to suppress their maladministration. Even the creation of fake deposits, evergreening of NPAs, fictitious loan creations, and false profit and loss statements are found at the time of emergence of scams. Madam, again in the instant case of the Raghavendra Bank, it had paid an excess of 70 crores as income tax by presenting false profit and loss statements even when the bank was suffering real losses. Madam, it is also important to note that the instant reforms are addressing one other pressing problem of cooperative banks, that is the difficulty of raising capital. Madam, in case of companies and commercial banks, capital can be transferred from one person to another, but is not refunded to the shareholder. But in a cooperative society, capital is refunded to a member if he or she so demands. Also, because there is no scope for appreciation in the value of share capital of a cooperative bank, mobilization of capital is a problem. Therefore, these reforms propose suitable provisions to make additional avenues to cooperative banks to raise additional capital. At the same time, it must be appreciated that the new avenues for raising capital are provided without compromising on the fundamental cooperative principle of one member and one note. Madam, I would want to say in conclusion that even the provisions related to the removal of the board of a cooperative bank has been made mandatory with a consultation with the state government. This is in line with the constitutional principle of cooperative federalism. Contrary to the arguments that the opposition is making, these reforms will not only strengthen the cooperative banks across the country, but will also revive confidence of the small depositor, the micro business owner in the formal banking system, as in many cases, it is the local cooperative bank that is the face of banking system in India. Our government, under the leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi, has always strived to protect the interests of the most vulnerable section of the society. These reforms today, madam, which are historic in nature, will help the state strive towards achieving Mahatma Gandhi's goal of enabling and empowering the weakest of the weak and the poorest of the poor. I thank Honorable Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman for bringing this very important bill. Thank you so much for the opportunity, madam.